now we have the basically latest generation is these Quest 3 headsets, and they're basically a $400 device that has capabilities of the HoloLens and even more, because they have bigger lenses that you can see reality with. We're now seeing these devices turning from VR devices into AR or mixed reality devices, as we like to call it. Like in that process, basically just tagged along when the technology got better in these glasses, when basically pass-through got introduced. First was black and white, and then it got color. Like we directly jumped into that and started using Arkio's capabilities. Arkio is a modeling tool, so you can do all sorts of things with bringing in virtual objects and putting them in the real world, and putting real objects and putting them in a virtual world, and really start blending those technologies together.
We've got a really exciting episode for you today with Johan Hanegraaf. He's the co-founder and head of product at Arkio, a collaborative spatial design tool helping AEC teams design and review buildings across AR, VR, and mixed reality. Johan's a trained architect. He's an engineer, a software developer. He spent years inside design firms where he saw firsthand how broken and outdated the future of design actually looks like. In the conversation, we talk about how to design buildings in true scale, using AR and VR instead of flat screens, why mixed reality, not just VR alone, is the real breakthrough for collaboration, and why AI and world models can completely reshape how we design and interact with spaces. Whether you're an architect, an engineer, or a founder of a building technology company in AEC, this episode is going to provide you a clearer picture as to where the industry is heading and how to stay ahead of it. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening to another episode of Buildings 2.0, a podcast that highlights the voices shaping our built environment. Today, I'm speaking with Johan Hanegraaf, co-founder and head of product at Arkio. Arkio is a collaborative spatial design tool that lets AEC teams ideate, review, and present building designs across AR, VR, desktop, and mobile devices. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
All right. So you've trained as both as an architect, as an engineer, but also as a software engineer. You mentioned you spent a decade in kind of design technology roles at companies like Mechnu. What was the moment you realized that the tools that we're using are just fundamentally broken as architects?
That was pretty early on already. I remember, and I think most people went through that same process when they were in university. You basically often come to the university with a bit of SketchUp experience, then your teachers are telling you, no, this is not like how you use professional software. You should be using Rhino. Then you come into the field, then people are using Revit, and then it's throughout the process of working with design teams, you see everyone is having their own workflows. Everyone is struggling with the tools and finding their way around. So I found pretty quickly already that these tools are not often helping in that sense. Also, the tools themselves, they have been basically a bit stagnant. Like they are pretty old if you look at the history of the CAD and BIM softwares at the moment. And yeah, you really see that in the user interface. Like when you get newer designers in the firms, they are struggling, and you see everyone is basically struggling with the softwares and how our processes are working as in the architecture field.
So, I mean, from the time you started till today, computing, AR, VR, it's come a long way. From 2018 till today, what are the differences? Like, what are we looking at today?
Like when I initially got into VR, it was like 2016. I think the first consumer grade virtual reality headsets came to the market with these cables and sensors you had to put up, these powerful PCs you had to set up. And back then I was still working at Mechanu, and basically got access to those technologies. I was already pretty handy with these technologies and a bit of coding. So I started making my own little prototypes, and that got me into the exciting new thing of these technologies. Like the thing that mostly excited me back then was that it's not only like stereoscopic, like seeing and experiencing things on scale, but you had these new input devices, these kind of 6 degrees of freedom controllers, which you could actually interact with. Back then in the early days, there were like not many interactions yet in these tools. Like most of the software was there to just view models, but there were a couple of creative tools like Tilt Brush and a couple of other tools, and they were super eye-opening. When I tested those out, it's like, wow, this is, as a designer, like a complete new way of having input to your design process. if we fast forward a bit over those years, Meta, well, back then it was called Facebook, they acquired Oculus. They basically jumped right in. They put a lot of investments into their platform. They got out with like the first wireless headset, the Quest 1. It's like around like early 2018, 19. And back then, Arkio, as we were working at, we were still in stealth, and we got access to one of these developer kits from Oculus back then. And we got really excited about the potential of these technologies not longer being cabled, but being wireless. You could just put these devices anywhere. And with these devices came limitations because they're basically a mobile processor strapped to your face with like a little battery inside. So you have to be super efficient in how you do the software and the operations. But just the advantage of having technology that you could literally drop in your backpack and take with you anywhere and then do something with VR. That's super exciting. Actually 3.5 years ago, they released their Quest Pro headset, and that was the first headset meant for professionals with color pass-through. And that also changed a lot because before we had HoloLens, again, HoloLens 2, there was Magic Leap, there were these kind of AR headsets that were around the $5,000 price range. And now these things became like around $800, $1,000 price range. So a lot more approachable and affordable. And now we have basically the latest generation is these Quest 3 headsets. And they're basically a $400 device that has capabilities of the HoloLens and even more because they have bigger lenses that you can see reality with. So we're now seeing these devices turning from VR devices into AR or mixed reality devices, as we like to call it. In that process, we basically just tagged along when the technology got better in these glasses, when basically pass-through got introduced. First was black and white, and then it got color. Like we directly jumped into that and started using Arkio's capabilities. Arkio is a modeling tool, so you can do all sorts of things with bringing in virtual objects and putting them in the real world, and putting real objects and putting them in a virtual world, and like really start blending those technologies together with the latest gen headsets.
I'm super excited to hear your thoughts on AR, but I have to be honest. So I'm not quite there on VR. So you know the space much better than I do, but we've watched Meta obviously spend a lot of money on Quest. Google Glasses kind of came and went. Obviously Apple with the Vision Pro, but it still feels like it's mostly like a developer tool. Folks will claim something like, gives them headaches, they kind of look goofy, or, they'll take them off after like 20 minutes. Like why has it felt that VR has like been like almost there, but for a very long time? Like what's going on?
I think that's a good question. So we are doing lots of trade shows, events, and we often put these headsets on people. So we're seeing all sorts of like experiences and also the experiences over time. And there is still like a general wariness from people to put on the headset because I think they look goofy. But the headsets did got a lot better over the last years. And basically everyone I let try these headsets recently, they are a bit surprised to what these things can do these days. Like for their experience, VR was still this bulky device that was like a strap to your face, like a red mark on your face because it was so heavy. And of course, there's still differences between devices. Like if you look, for example, at the Apple Vision Pro, it is a device we're planning to support, but we also didn't put it on the top of our agenda because we're seeing that many of them got sold and they were not that big of a success as Apple thought, because it is an uncomfortable device to wear for a longer time because it's front heavy. And even though they have put the battery on a separate puck, it's still a heavy device. And like these more plasticky materials, they feel a bit better in making that experience better. Like what we're also seeing is the headsets in the beginning, they were very blurry and not very powerful. So the frame rates were often not comfortable. And that, I think, upset also a lot of people. Like the early days were still with the cardboard boxes with the phones in there. That was even worse because then you move your head forward, but it's not having 6 degrees of freedom. So you're kind of standing still and you get also like sick. So a lot of people had like a not so great initial experience with VR and they didn't give it a second chance with the latest gen devices. So that's a discussion we keep having with people also. Like when they try these latest gen devices, they're basically blown away and shocked by how much the technology has gone. Like Meta has been heavily investing in this for years, and I think it did pay off in the latest gen devices.
How for folks that are like non-technical, how do they think about the relationship of augmented reality, AR, and virtual reality, VR? Do they complement each other? Are they fundamentally different technologies? Do you need one before the other? How should folks think about this?
So when we initially started with this, it was all VR basically. Like we saw the advantage of having basically you're immersing yourself in these models. But reality is the architecture field, engineering field. It's a lot about collaboration, and it's a lot about not only being by yourself in a model, but it's also seeing your model in the current context. So for us, especially when these devices started getting AR capabilities, it's always been like mixed reality seems to be the most natural way for this because not like VR has its use case, like the complete immersion, like when you're just standing inside there somewhere and you want to really experience it from that place alone. But the moment you want to walk around and not trip over your desk, the moment you want to do something with other people in that room, mixed reality becomes more handy. And uh, having mixed reality allows you to, like, now I want to just go for full immersion or I switch it a bit back to AR. So it's a bit the best of both worlds. The technology for that is now like very mature with these headsets, like the Meta Quest 3 headset. Next gen devices that is coming to market end of this year, start of next year, will be even smaller like classes, form factors we're already seeing and looking at. So that will be exciting things to see also. The problem with the current AR focused devices like the HoloLens was that their technology of the lens was not there yet. Like it was like a limited display of like a field of view. You could see things. The technology also not able to block out the real world. So basically it's kind of like a hologram feel about on the real world. So it doesn't have the capability to go full VR. And with mixed reality, with these kind of pass-through lens technology, you can go full AR or you can go full VR. It's a bit more also I think the reason why Apple chose this technology in the end with their first gen device.
Talk to me about use cases. From what I understand, you are working alongside different architectural and engineering firms. What do you find can be uniquely resolved in a much more immersive experience than, say, me sitting behind a desk with a screen? What are some of the most compelling use cases that you're hearing?
So the most value you get with these glasses is that you can see spaces and scale a lot better than you could see on a 2D screen. So we envision Arkio also as this environment where you can load your model as a scale model out of your screen, basically on your table next to you, and that you can just jump into that model and invite others basically like around you to also join and see that model from that same table position or inside that model at human scale position. Like the eye-opening thing for people is the seeing their spaces in true scale. Like people think when they're looking at a render or a video or something that they know the sizes of a space, but everyone understands when you go to actually travel somewhere to a building or you see the building for the first time after it's being in your mind and being designed on for 2 or 3 years, the scale is always looking different in real like world than it is on the computer screen. That value, making that as approachable as possible for people, getting their large models on a mobile headset, like on their desk and sharing it, like that's the most like no-brainer in value that people can have. And what I see as the next step from there is then interacting with that model. Like what if you, instead of having to use your mouse and a little widget in Revit to try to move it, and then it kind of doesn't want to move because it's a wall and it kind of breaks things. Like we want to make it as easy as just picking up that wall and just moving it. Like it has to be easier to do these interactions.
For the entrepreneurs listening to this particular episode, talk to us about how you've thought about the commercial side of the business. So, as you're navigating changing technologies, as you're working with different firms, you're also trying to figure out, well, how do you build a business? And so,
Mhm.
Maybe from the time you started versus today, what have you learned about how to build a commercial case for this? Is it primarily seat based? Is it some sort of project based approach? How do you think about this for kind of young entrepreneurs coming in and thinking about selling to AEC market?
That's a good question. So, like initially, we're basically a stealth software. We looked for some of our our early customers, just like, so what is the thing that you guys want to do with VR? And the tools that we built, we basically built with them. We found from the pretty early days that what they were basically looking for is really this one button solution. They didn't want anything super technical. They wanted something they could just really easily jump into and then use. On those early years, we didn't ask any money. We just wanted people's feedback, and that helped a lot in shaping a product that people actually want to use and want to pay for. Eventually, we just had discussions with the users, so what are you guys willing to pay for this? What is this worth to you? And those were just pretty honest discussions, and we came to this pricing model where user buys seats of licenses for the capabilities to bring in their large Revit models and to have meetings in these models. And in order to scale and make it approachable for everyone to experience this technology, we decided pretty early on to always keep a free version of the app available. And that's important because this is such a novel new way of doing things. A lot of architects are still unfamiliar with this technology, and especially the latest gen technology, that making this technology available, at least in the basics, gets people involved, gets them hooked. And then once they want to get the added capabilities to it, they just get the subscription model to unlock those capabilities.
Has AI changed the way that you think about the fundamental value proposition of immersive experiences?
It changed it a bit. We're also looking into the latest developments with AI, the current AI functionalities we have in there are very, I think everyone has those these days, like image generation and things like that. But we are looking into all the new exciting stuff that's happening with world models, Splats and all these new technologies that have a lot of overlap also with these XR headsets and the technologies there. What AI changed more is how we could basically have the business ourselves more organized and make our developers more speedier in how to get certain things done. So we're seeing AI help in a lot of ways there. Interesting thing of these technologies is that they're so rapidly developing that it is a bit hard to place a right bet as a software business, because basically once you put a bet on something next month, there's a new model already coming out. So we're also looking for ways to make this easier to switch and to let the end user decide what types of models to use and make this more approachable for everyone to switch, because these things are moving so fast nowadays. And also what we are most excited about is the AI capabilities that are still being heavily developed. So they're a bit less limited. Well, they're more limited now than the large language models. They went pretty far already. The world models with Splats, they're moving in an interesting direction. So we're just keeping an eye on all these technologies that are into 3D space, because that's the most relevant also for us with these glasses and mixed reality capabilities.
Do you think that there will be a superior file format or just format in general that's going to emerge? The reason I ask is because we're in a unique moment in time. I'm sure you're seeing the investment community talk about physical AI now, and that's kind of, as we start to realize that AI is taking a large part of the knowledge work, we're seeing a lot of focus now around kind of the hard stuff around AI. With that, there are organizations like World Labs obviously doubling down on foundation models that take it one step beyond what our current foundation models are trained on. So it seems like the last few years have been really focused on text and images and video, music, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Spatial data, 3D model data seems to be like this wild west of stuff. You have NeRFs and Gaussian splats, and of course, 3D models, BIM models, and CAD, of course. Is there a particular format that you think is going to emerge as important, especially as we consider the rise of humanoids, robot?
It's an interesting question. I haven't thought about it that far yet, but I am seeing what I've seen with a lot of technologies that happened in the AC in the last years is I don't think there will be any format that's just going to wipe away all the other formats that we already have, because things move very slow in our industry. So I would think if something comes and for example, these plots, like they look very interesting, and especially if you have like high fidelity, more like fluffy, detailed things, like they're just superior over the technology that we used to have, like making like a mesh out of it with a texture on it, and gaming technology, or making several gigabyte point clouds of that thing. Like I think some of these technologies will replace like the other, because they will just be more superior. But I think they will all coexist a bit along each other also for a while, because there's no perfect 3D file format that I know of yet that solves it all.
With that, I know one of the things that like a fairly common topic is around kind of the single player versus multiplayer approach. My instinct is that for continuing mass adoption, we would need to solve for high quality multiplayer scenarios. Um, is that not the case? Are you saying something different?
So no, I think that multiplayer is very important there. Like the old way of doing things, of like basically having your individual CAD file and sending that to someone else, or like a bit like how Revit hacked in work sharing, and that became kind of BIM in the end. That like, that's all kind of like people got used to like working together, and they got used to working in a cloud to get all their files in the latest level. And like I think if you don't do that, like you're basically left out, because this is already the default way of how people expect things to work. But the format itself, like a 3D file format, I don't think that will be just like one CAD file or one Gaussian splat file. That like it will probably be a multitude of different things. And you guys probably also are looking into all these developments from your startup.
Yeah, it's something I'm certainly thinking about. I think with obviously, as you consider the spectrum of point clouds and meshes and Gaussian splats and different file formats and whatnot, I do think about what format will likely lead us to providing the right digital foundations for not just human use cases, of course, us architects, engineers, builders, that sort of thing, but also setting the right foundations for autonomous systems, humanoid robots, etc. My hunch is that both humans and robots kind of need the same thing, but perhaps just expressed in different formats where, we use our eyes to view imagery. I suspect robots probably need more structured code and dimensionality. So it's definitely something that's been keeping me up. It's like, what would be the ideal format? Or is it just feeding a bunch of videos and images and like hoping robots over time kind of make sense of it? So.
I think that format will probably there will be a couple of players, like they're already kind of like all like trying to fight for this market and getting the ultimate world models. I think all big tech guys have their own kind of like thing already in the pipeline, but
Yeah.
that will definitely be an interesting thing. Like what will that data be something that can be interchanged between the different tech platforms? Will that something be like all kind of cloud, some magic black box that all these robots have to connect to? Like I think some companies will probably have a bit more open approach, and that's super interesting for like us in the AEC field, because then we can tap into that. And an example of this is Meta has with their Quest devices, they do room scans, and Apple has a similar technology. When you basically look around with the headset, it already puts boxes around the stuff, it classifies the things, and we access that data as well to convert that geometry into Arkio geometry, so people can move it around and edit it with our modeling kernel. That kind of understanding of these devices to classify the world around them in real time, especially with these new smart glasses coming up that are more like a glasses form factor, that will be super important. That companies like probably Meta and Google, they all want to own that data, of course, because that's super powerful in mapping the world and providing the robot plan for all the robots to find all the places around the world. And I think if I would have to put my bets on it, it would probably be like a party like Google, because they have so much data already. If you look at their Google Maps and their how they already harvest all the data of everyone's cell phone when they're using Google Maps, like they have probably the biggest understanding of the world right now. But Meta definitely has the ambition to do something like that with their smart glasses. The other parties probably also will do something similar. And
Right.
we just as AEC just jump in whenever the big tech guys come up with some nice world models.
If you could snap your finger right now and kind of transport us like 5 years into the future, what should that future look like in the way that we design and plan buildings? What, yeah, what are we doing?
I think it will be a lot more automated and a lot less specialty equipment that you need for it. I think devices like these new smart glasses that are coming, devices that's basically already aware of the world around you and they scan that data sooner or later will just become accessible to us as the AC industry. And that allows you to make kind of existing situations and models in a much faster way than would have been possible today. The question there is the accuracy. Can these models be so good that they already know millimeter accuracy, like what the things are going to be? Like with my experiences with the models from Meta and Apple, they are actually getting really good already. Like the headsets that I'm using, they're basically having their own anchoring system. Like when we have multiple headsets together, we co-locate users, so they basically see that model the same position on the table, and when they do some mixed reality cool stuff and dragging holes through the wall and stuff like that. And these headsets, then when you don't use them for a month and you put them on again, they still know that location, and it is centimeter accuracy. I wouldn't say it's millimeter accuracy, but it's impressive what these things already know and how good these anchors that these headsets are making are already working.
Interesting. Johan, I think this has been a super fun conversation. I think maybe one last question. Starting a company is a highly personal decision. I'm curious, what inspired you to start your own thing? I can personally relate in that the highs are very high and the lows are lows. I'm curious, did you have inspiration? Did you have background? Did your family or friends start businesses? I'm always curious what propels folks to give it a shot.
It's a good question. Like I think, I didn't have like personally like friends around me that were doing anything especially not in software startups. So I was a bit by myself. But I think what drove me to do this is just seeing, uh, like, like I love working with architects, and I loved the creative process, but I hated like to see how much people were struggling with like their design tools, and they're just seeing the people enjoy the little tools that I built for myself within the architecture firms that I worked at, and just seeing that, bringing that joy back into the architect's life. I think that was the main drive for me to step into the tool building instead of the building. And it's still, I think, until today, like one of the highlights also of my day-to-day practice. Like when I'm talking to customers and I'm seeing them use our tools, and like, it's just, it really gives you the reward that I used to get as an architect when I was walking through the building and seeing people use the building. Like this is basically what I'm doing.
For you represent, I'd suggest kind of like a new breed of architects in that it's not uncommon now for folks that study traditional architecture to move more into kind of technology based roles. Knowing what you know now and, having the benefit of hindsight in your experience, what might you recommend to a young Johan, maybe straight out of college? What would you advise him?
So I think I would have advised myself to be a bit more entrepreneurial from the start, because I had to find this entrepreneurial skill through just seeing the opportunity.
Mhm.
And I could have worked on some of those skills more when I had connections at the universities and all the things that were still available back then. Like I basically was a bit late to the game because I got into technology more while I was in practice, and just having the mindset as a young architect that it's not only about buildings. There's so many other things you can do as an architect. We're super broadly trained as architects. Like you have so many skills that can be applied in running a business or doing even carpentry or all sorts of stuff. Like some friends that went in completely different fields as well. The reality also is the architecture field is it is competitive. Like if you're working in big architecture firms, you have to like work for a couple of years as an intern. Like it is pretty hard to make it as an architect. And there are other opportunities out there that you can also sidetrack, and they're sometimes even better if you like that kind of stuff. So that's my tip for young art.
Johan, this was really fun. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.